What are tag managers? Now, the best way to go about it would be to think of a tag manager as a toolbox which holds your various tools or tags in this case. So, for an example, let's take one of the most used tag managers, which is Google Tag Manager, and it has all these tags that you can use. Now, why do we need a tag manager? Why can't I simply just individually, enable a service which I want? Like, let's say I want Google Analytics, I could go to the page of Google Analytics. I could copy their code, I could put it in my source code, and yeah, I would have enabled Google Analytics for my website. But then I would realize that I need Facebook ads as well. So I would go on Facebook, I would copy that code, paste it into my code, and then that's how I would enable it. Now, if I needed another tool, so I would have to repeat the same process over and over again. uh, yeah, so this makes it very tedious. And now we are just talking about it on a smaller scale. Imagine if this were to happen on a larger scale in an organization, let's say. So this would take up a lot of time, a lot of resources, and put it would be a burden on the IT team as well. So what Google Tag Manager does is it gives you one code which you have to paste in your source code, and it would install Google Tag Manager for you. So then you could go to its console, right? You could go to its console where it unifies all these tags and you can use them together. So these are three tags that are enabled on the same website, but as you can see, I didn't have to use three different codes. I just had to use one code, and Google Tag Manager has streamlined the process for me. Now, again, this is also helpful in cases when you need to, change code or update something. Like if the company rolls out an update and you have to make changes to it accordingly. If I were to have added individual codes in my source code, I would have to make changes on all of the codes on all of the pages of the website. But again, Google Tag Manager makes it way easier to, deal with these sorts of changes since it is unified in one console. Some things you have to keep in mind while using a tag manager is to, use a tag manager that's trusted. Since you're dealing with a lot of data, you need to ensure that your privacy and your customers' privacy are maintained, and that's why it is important to use a tag manager which is trusted. Another thing is that tag managers often, provide you with previews where you can test your tags, and you can find out how it is working, and then you can publish it. And another thing we need to keep in mind is that Google Tag Manager does not replace these tools, it only makes them easier to use. So, like, I am still using Google Analytics, but I am using it through Google Tag Manager, which through its streamlined process, makes it more user friendly and easier for me to use. It reduces the coding work, so you don't have to be dependent on the IT team. It deals well with changes, updates, and also deletion. Suppose you have to remove a code because you are not using that service anymore. So again, you'll have to locate that code on your source code and delete individually. But via Google Tag Manager, you can again use its console to do the same. So this was an overview of what is a tag manager and how it works. So we've seen how a tag manager works. Now let's move on to some popular tag managers that are out there. Firstly, we have Google Tag Manager, which is the most widely used one, and that's why I also used that for our example earlier. And Google Tag Manager is a free tag manager, and since it is free, many companies are hesitant to go with it because firstly you don't have the data. It's the platform that has the data, which is Google Tag Manager in this case, and ultimately you don't know how that data will be used. And then secondly, people in security teams of the company are skeptical about sharing data with a free platform. So that's why people also tend to go for paid platforms, or the platforms that can give the access to the data to the user itself. So secondly, we have a Telium Tag Manager or Telium IQ Tag Manager. It is a standalone tag manager, which means you could go and buy it on its own, and it is paid, which is why it offers more features than Google Tag Manager. And some people, as I said, might even choose Telium Tag Manager over Google Tag Manager for the same reasons that we discussed. Because it's people are skeptical about sharing their data with a free platform. Then thirdly, we have the Adobe launch, which is formerly known as Dynamic Tag Manager. It is not a standalone tag manager solution. It comes as a complementary product along with the Adobe Experience Cloud Stack or Adobe Marketing Cloud Stack. So if you're buying those, then you get Adobe Launch as a complementary tag management solution automatically. Then we have Ensighten. It is also a standalone solution, which is another alternative to Google Tag Manager. And we also have Google Tag Manager 360, which is part of the premium suite of Google Analytics. So it's a paid alternative to Google Tag Manager itself. And the main advantage of using 360 or regular Google Tag Manager is that it gives you the access to your data and thus more security assurance. And also, people who are familiar with Google Tag Manager, they won't have problems moving to Google Tag Manager 360 as the interface is pretty much the same. There are not many changes. And also, we know that Google is the most popular marketing platform, so even for that reason, people tend to choose Google Tag Manager 360. So these were just some popular tag managers. Of course, there are more that are out there, and you can check them out as well. Uh, then, yeah, this was pretty much all for the video. We discussed what a tag manager is. It's basically a toolbox where you have all your tags as tools, and how it makes the life of both the IT person and the marketing person easier. Then we saw some things to be careful about, or some things to keep in mind while working with tag managers. Firstly, to use a tag manager which is trusted. Secondly, using the preview mode to your full advantage, like testing again and again to see if there are any errors. Then while submitting your changes, you need to properly document them, like use proper names and describe what changes you're making, so that when you come back to that version after a long time or after a certain amount of time, you know what changes you made in that version. So yeah, these are just few things to keep in mind while working with tag managers. And yeah, that's all for the video. Thank you.